The next anime review is in the works, but I've found myself playing Spec Ops the Line again recently, and while I replayed this game for like the 20th time, I got to thinking, why is this game still remembered fondly a full 8 years after it came out? A standalone reboot sequel to a modern military series that not that many people really remember, and it came out in an absolute Noah's Ark level flood of games in that exact genre, while also ripping off gameplay from Mass Effect 2 and Gears of War, which were pretty worn out by 2012. What makes Spec Ops the Line work, and what made, I don't know, Last of Us 2 end up as a hilarious disaster that shat its pants and tried to wipe itself clean with $100 million? And don't misunderstand me for shitting on Last of Us 2. I appreciate what it was trying to do, being a grim look at humanity through the use of gaming as a medium. I, for one, actually believe that video games are an art form that can be intellectually stimulating, and a mature way to explore our relationships with interactivity and media.
You built Auschwitz on our Minecraft server!
Hey.
I was gonna build like a fucking farm here, and you built Auschwitz!
I just also did not appreciate Last of Us 2 for being stupid, contrived, pretentious, annoying, bloated for the sake of trying to manipulate the audience, and all around feels like the same condescending bullshit we get from Hollywood, which makes sense when you remember how desperate a lot of game devs are to be seen as respected artists, instead of just embracing the fact you make video games, and stopped trying to be movies. Before we get started, I will warn you that this is going to be another video talking about how much Last of Us 2 sucks, which there are a lot of those right now, and it's something we're all pretty much accepting at this point. Honestly, the whole game just feels like a meme everybody's already forgetting about. Even just making a video like this feels like I'm trying to keep a joke alive that's starting to get pretty worn out and kind of feels embarrassing. Despite that small bump in positive press after games journalists exploited Laura Bailey getting death threats, trying to spread the usual gamers are all mentally unstable incels that hate person for existing shit. But I only made like 2 videos about Last of Us 2, so it's magically okay when I do it. Now, just to disclose this to you guys, I'm gonna be spoiling the shit out of Last of Us 2 and Spec Ops the Line. The former is pretty fucking awful, so I honestly feel like I'm doing you a favor on that front, but Spec Ops is actually kind of amazing. You guys should really play it before watching the rest of this video so none of the twists get spoiled for you. From this point on, we're gonna be dissecting the storylines to both games, and it's gonna be full-on spoilers from here on out. If you don't want that for either game, go ahead and click on another video. I just did a review of the anime adaptation of Gantz. People get ripped in half and a girl with big titties gets her vagina licked by a dog. It's an exciting time for the whole family. Spec Ops the Line is the 10th game in the Spec Ops series, serving as a standalone reboot that tries to tell its own story, separated from the rest of the franchise. It was developed by Jaeger Studios and published by 2K, and it follows 3 Delta Force operators led by Captain Walker. Their mission is to enter the ruined city of Dubai, which was devastated by freak sandstorms that completely collapsed the metropolis into basically a post-apocalyptic dystopia. They soon discover that the military unit that was originally sent into the city to restore order has gone rogue, and the trio make it their mission to find the mysterious colonel in charge of the battalion in Dubai, called the Damn 33rd, and relieve him of command.
Terminate the colonel's command.
Terminate the colonel. Terminate with extreme prejudice.
So almost immediately, you might start to think that the story to Spec Ops the Line is a tad generic sounding. It's a modern military shooter taking place in the Middle East. Sure, you're not in Afghanistan shooting terrorists, but it was still sand and army guys shouting at each other. This is actually part of the joke with Spec Ops the Line. It intentionally made itself look super dry and generic on the outside to trick people to go in with different expectations than they probably should. Spec Ops the Line is a deconstruction of modern military shooters and serves as almost a dark parody of the genre. It's not funny, but it's trying to make fun of it. To put it in perspective, the time frame when this game came out was absolutely saturated with modern military games. Everything from the big boys like Call of Duty to the cheap imitations like Medal of Honor Warfighter. Insert funny joke about how terrible of a name that is. The point is, this was an epidemic, and you didn't even have the slight benefit of having Corona-chan sit on your face. It became exhausting how many of these games there were, and then came along Spec Ops, which was a tad different from the other guys.
Captain. Lugo. Help.
There were over 5,000 people alive in Dubai the day before you arrived. How many are alive today, I wondered? How many will be alive tomorrow? I thought my duty was to protect this city from the storm. I was wrong. I have to protect it from you.
The biggest influence on the story is obviously Heart of Darkness and the film Apocalypse Now, which is pretty obvious when you realize the bad guy, John Conrad, is literally a reference to the author of Heart of Darkness, Joseph Conrad.
I get it!
The themes of all three stories are about human rights abuses, cruelty, going mad with power, mental instability, and the growing obsession the protagonist has with finding a mythical figure. There is an intent to explore the absolute worst that people can do to each other, and show savagery at its most primal. Heart of Darkness and Apocalypse Now does this literally, by having the character of Kurtz in both stories lead a tribal band of warriors that live in the jungle. Apocalypse Now changes this by having Kurtz be a Green Beret in the military during Vietnam that basically goes rogue and leads an unsanctioned army against the North Vietnamese, while Kurtz in the novel is an ivory trader working for a Belgian company in the Congo that is worshipped by the native Africans like a god. Both are pushed past the brink of insanity and essentially are complete lunatics by the time the protagonists reach them, though Kurtz in Apocalypse Now has more of a method to his madness, which Martin Sheen's character actually begins to sympathize with.
You have to have men who are moral and at the same time who are able to utilize their primordial instincts to kill without feeling, without passion, without judgment. Because it's judgment that defeats us.
Conrad in Spec Ops the Line is interpreted more as a tired, broken man, shattered by his time trying to heal Dubai, suffering from extreme post-traumatic stress. Spec Ops shows savagery by depicting literal war crimes, public executions, shady government types leaving innocents to die, torture. It shows the worst parts of war nobody likes to hear about. All three depict an increasingly violent and desperate journey to find their built-up antagonists, and all end with dark revelations about the nature of humanity and how corruptible the ones with power and authority can be.
I'm a soldier. You're neither. You're an errand boy, sent by grocery clerks to collect a bill.
Now Lolly, you cry while also calling me a pretentious fuck for actually reading a book that doesn't have dark-skinned anime tomboy titties in it. What does any of this have to do with Last of Us 2? You've only really talked about Spec Ops the Line so far. Well, here's your wish. Last of Us 2 is the sequel to the 2014 game, which you already know. It follows Ellie on a quest for revenge after she is forced to watch Joel be tortured and murdered in front of her, which sends her on a mission to kill everyone that wronged her, while also feeling really bad about it for some reason, because Neil Druckmann doesn't actually understand how people work. Last of Us 2 is a dark, nihilistic slog of a story that thinks it is way smarter than it really is. I have already made 2 videos about the damn thing, so I'm just gonna rush through a quick summary and assume you already know the majority of the details. Ellie and Joel live in Jackson after the events of Last of Us 1. Turns out Ellie is a Home Depot shopper and has a Jewish girlfriend that compares 60% of the world dying to a grisly zombie plague to the fucking Holocaust.
I like coming from a long line of survivors.
You mean after Outbreak Day?
That, and the Inquisition, and the Holocaust. My family always made it out alive.
What's wrong with you?
Because even if the apocalypse happens, you better not forget about the 6 million. Joel gets whacked by She-Hulk's Down syndrome retard baby and her gang of merry lads. They let Ellie and Tommy live, ensuring they would hunt them down and kill them, because this group of gasoline chuggers did the exact same thing when Joel killed a veterinarian that everyone thinks can somehow develop a vaccine for a fungus in the post-apocalypse, even though we don't even have fungal vaccines in the year of our Lord Cyberpunk 2020. Ellie kills the bad men and starts to feel guilty, despite slicing the countless throats of their comrades mere minutes beforehand, especially when he kills one of them that is revealed to be pregnant. And I might be the only one that says this, but Mel was a terrible person that deserved to die. Yes, she was the only one to call Abby out on her manipulative shit, her guilt-tripping her friends to go on a revenge quest despite she herself not giving a fuck about the Fireflies and just wanting revenge for her dad, the same dad she encouraged to kill a 14-year-old girl without her knowledge, consent, and was totes on board with taking Joel out back to the tool shed and and putting a bullet in him like Grandpa when he pissed on the carpet and ruined Christmas. Point is, Mel was a mouth-breathing idiot that kept putting herself into dangerous, life-threatening situations, despite being one of the few doctors their faction had, and was also close to 8 months pregnant. She literally got pissy when Abby asked, "Why the fuck are you still here? You're pregnant, you absolute buffoon. Do you know how valuable you are to our group? Get the fuck back in your room before I break your legs."
I'd rather not sit around if I don't have to. No one's okay with this? Why would it be up to Owen?
It's almost as bad as Anya in New Colossus when she has a full-on shirtless Rambo shootout scene, despite being heavily pregnant with twins. I hate New Colossus so fucking much. Anyway, Mel and Owen are at an aquarium. Ellie kills them, she finds out Mel was pregnant, and then feels really bad about what she's doing, which could have worked if she didn't constantly feel bad about what she was doing. I'll get into why this is a problem later, but yeah, Last of Us 2 tries to manipulate you into feeling bad by making Ellie cry while she kills the bad man. Abby tracks Ellie down to a theater. There's a 10-hour deviation in the plot to explain Abby's side of the story and events leading up to the scene at the theater, and the two fight. Abby's Tard Wrangler Lev, a training kid from an ultra-religious cult that is willing to break children's arms with a sledgehammer from misbehaving. Yeah, they're called Seraphites, or as they're better known as the actual heroes of the game. Anyway, Lev stops Abby from killing Ellie's pregnant girlfriend, which was kind of a confirmation that Abby's a terrible human being that's a blatant fucking hypocrite. But no, I guess she's actually in the right because Ellie killed a friend of hers that was pregnant. It's fucking stupid. I will explain why Lev doesn't work and actively takes you out of the experience in a bit, but I do want to disclose that he was actually one of the better characters. He was willing to call Abby out when she went too far and acted like an actual human being for the most part. Ellie and Dina go to a farm trying to get over killing hundreds of people for a quest they didn't even complete. Oh, and they're raising the baby that Dina got pregnant with by her previous boyfriend. Kind of forgot about that detail since the game just sort of forgot about Jesse. Yeah, he's just dead. He was one of Ellie's friends in Jackson and dude just fucking dies. That was his role. He was a glorified turkey baster full of boy slime. Anyway, Tommy comes over to the farm. He's all crippled and sad that his stupid brother is dead and Ellie just ran off with her girlfriend instead of avenging him, and then guilt trips Ellie into hunting Abby down again. Unbeknownst to Ellie, however, Abby and Lev have already been captured by a group of slavers led by Fat Geralt. You spent too long mastering Gwent, and now looks like your friend's dad, who always wants to tell you stories about when he was a Leonard Skinner roadie. Ellie kills all of the bad men, then sets Abby and Lev free, instead of gutting Abby like a fish on her stupid pole, and then going with Lev to go save the American dream like she should have. The two fight on the beach, and Ellie lets Abby go again, content that she has moved on from her revenge and ready to start her life over again. But Dina took the baby and left, leaving her all alone with missing fingers, meaning she can't play guitar, even though she can just learn left-handed guitar, I don't know. She lost the one thing that she liked to do that reminded her of Joel. Also, all those people she killed to get to Abby don't matter. Just don't think about it. Don't think about how stupid it is that Ellie was a vicious killer in gameplay, yet was a whiny crying bitch when she had to kill people that actually fucked her over in cutscenes. Ludonarrative dissonance? What's that? Feel bad, gamer. A lesbian is crying. You killed dogs and a pregnant woman. Feel bad.
No, I don't think I will.
Okay, so that's the story of Last of Us 2. You might notice I was a bit more critical towards this than Spec Ops. I really don't like Last of Us 2's story. It feels forced from pretty much any angle. It barely has any DNA from the first game in it, beyond the simple, mediocre gameplay. Gameplay that was really just designed to prop up a compelling story, but a compelling story this is not. Last of Us 1 was essentially Children of Men mixed with 28 Days Later, mixed with The Road. It was a tightly written tale that focused on the bond between a broken man and an optimistic girl who grow to care about each other while trying to stay alive in a hellish nightmare. It was hopeful, and you wanted to see Joel and Ellie make it to the light at the end of the tunnel.
Not her,
What?
Maria told me about Sarah.
Ellie?
And
You are treading on some mighty thin ice here.
I'm sorry about your daughter, Joel, but I have lost people too.
You have no idea what loss is.
Everyone I have cared for has either died or left me. Everyone fucking except for you. So don't tell me that I would be safer with someone else, because the truth is I would just be more scared.
Last of Us 2 thinks being compelling is just showing miserable people be assholes to each other, and the only good parts are when it goes back to what made the first game special, and shows us Joel and Ellie spending time together. I know the sequel wanted to completely change things up, and I'm even fine with it on paper. Killing Joel off and focusing on Ellie was kind of the next logical step forward for the series, bar completely leaving them out of the story and focusing on new characters. I'm not asking for it to be the same thing as last time. I'm asking for you to actually know what you're doing if you want to go in a new direction. So let's go back to talking about Spec Ops. Spec Ops the Line is such an immediate improvement over Last of Us 2's story because of how the story is told. There's actual pacing behind it, and the decisions made for the narrative help immerse the player into the game's logic. What does any of that mean? Well, let me explain. Spec Ops begins like any other modern military game. You have an in media res sequence where you're on a helicopter shooting a turret at other helicopters. It crashes because it's a video game and you're in a helicopter, and you flash back to the series of events that brought you there. You go into the Middle Eastern city, in this case the ruins of Dubai, and are given a simple mission. Look for survivors, then leave the city and radio for reinforcements. But almost as soon as you enter, you start to notice signs of something going terribly wrong. There are corpses lining the streets, and any survivors you do find are openly hostile towards you. You want to know what happened, and maybe even try to save whoever you can. Sure, it might feel like the same old shit you're used to, the American cowboy come to save the day, but you still want to see where this goes. How did you end up at the helicopter? What happened? Can you prevent it? Last of Us 2 stumbles over itself right out of the gate. It roughly summarizes the events of the first game, trying to catch up to people that either never played Last of Us or simply don't remember what happened. You then discover Joel and Ellie have a strained relationship due to Joel's actions, and are trying to make the best of things in Jackson. Then you're suddenly playing as Abby running away from zombies. So despite building up a focus on Ellie and Joel, you are thrust into playing a completely different character in a different scenario. It's not entirely a bad thing since you obviously know this is gonna relate to the larger plot eventually, but it feels like a drastic shift out of nowhere. Think of it like a metaphor. You want to see what Joel and Ellie are doing, then Abby shows up and steals the spotlight, and not in a good way. Point is, instead of gradually sinking into the game and wanting to see what happens like Spec Ops does, you are pushed into a fast-paced scenario you get through simply because you don't want to die and restart the checkpoint.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
And the same thing in Spec Ops is okay because I said so. Okay, no joking, the whole beginning sequence is a part of the meta joke regarding generic army man shooters treating the audience like ADD-riddled children, especially since when you get to the same sequence at the end, you have the full context of what happened, and realize that part was a bit darker than you thought. Aside from that, the game takes its time. The first enemy encounter you have in Spec Ops can go on for a bit if you simply never pull out your gun. Walker actually tries to talk them down.
My name is Captain Martin Walker. We're looking for survivors.
Why? So you can kill us too?
You speak Farsi? Maybe we can understand each other better. Agar in Torim harf bezanim.
Good call, Lugo. This could go south real fast.
You can take your time and the game doesn't swat you on the ass for it. The true nature behind Spec Ops takes kind of a bit for it to come out, almost a quarter of the way through the game, and the big twist shows up maybe halfway. Once again, there is a set pace behind it, and the game really isn't that long, maybe about 6 hours, but it has a plan. You get used to what you're familiar with, start teasing that things are probably not what you think, then slam you with a big reveal that completely changes the formula.
You're fucking kidding, right? That's white phosphorus.
Yeah, I know what it is.
Last of Us 2 starts with the death of Joel, which I'm actually okay with. The entire game revolves around Joel's murder, and Ellie's obsession with killing the WLF, the Washington Liberation Front, the members that are responsible for it. Even the exact way he died didn't really piss me off. Yes, it was a bit odd that Tommy was just babbling about where their group was to total strangers, and the fact that Abby just happened to stumble into the guy she was hunting for years out of the blue, but it's not that stupid. The joke about them killing anybody named Joel was funny.
Joel Miller.
My name is Rusty Shackelford. Shackelford.
but it's made clear that Abby recognized him almost immediately. She just held off on killing him because they were being chased by infected, and Abby snuck up on him with a shotgun, so it's not like he could have done much. It's not the worst sudden death on the planet, but people were obviously upset that such a great character was just killed off like that. What makes this whole scenario stupid is when you realize why they were hunting him. The rest of Abby's group blames Joel for destroying the Fireflies. Granted, they were already on the verge of extinction, but Joel put the final nail in the coffin by killing Marlene. They also view him as the reason they don't have a cure for cordyceps. Personally, I think it would not have worked, but the important thing is they thought it would have worked. Seems like a decent enough reason to kill a man. What's the problem? Well, Joel killed Abby's dad, who was the surgeon trying to operate on Ellie, the literal NPC. Also, he got retconned for being a black guy for this twist, and the game makes it a point that Abby emotionally manipulates her friends into helping her carry out her selfish revenge plan. She doesn't give a shit about the Fireflies, and literally only cares that her dad is dead. Bitch, do you know how many dead dads there are out there? Everyone has lost loved ones in this world. It's just how life is now. Bill didn't go on a revenge spree when he found out his partner got munched on by zombies. The entire plot hinges on the idea that somebody traversing a deadly landscape in search of revenge is not a terrible and stupid idea. Something that actually got cut out of the first game because it would have been terrible and stupid. For those unaware, the original ending of the first game would have involved Tess, the woman Joel worked with in the beginning, betraying him and trying to kill him and Ellie because he screwed her over on a deal or killed her brother or something like that. They never fleshed it out because they dropped that idea as soon as they realized somebody trying to track down a guy for revenge in a hazardous wasteland was kind of silly. Now, of course, that's not to say it's completely impossible of a premise. The Revenant, the 2015 movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, is literally about this idea. It takes place during colonial America, which was a very brutal place to be. The climate tried to kill you, the wildlife tried to kill you, the natives tried to kill you. You simply did not have a luxury at all to be stupid. But what makes The Revenant work is that Leonardo DiCaprio's character basically has nothing left to live for. He has no friends or loved ones to hang on to, and essentially is a living ghost of a man. So him being willing to traverse such an environment in search of revenge makes sense, because what the fuck else can he do? Abby has friends, loved ones, a relatively comfortable home. Her life got better after her dad died, but the plot says she needs to kill Joel because he's a meanie. It feels so forced that I'm convinced Joel and Ellie were never even supposed to be in the sequel. So let's compare this to Spec Ops the Line. Walker's obsession with finding Conrad makes sense. All around him, he sees evidence of abuses of power and supposed mental instability. His teammates, Lugo and Adams, are willing to call Walker out on deviating from the mission, but hesitantly go along with him because they really don't have any other choice. As they go further into Dubai, the three are forced to make a series of increasingly harrowing decisions. Save civilians, or save a CIA agent with information regarding what the fuck is going on? Shoot American soldiers in self-defense, or let yourself die and fail the mission? Execute a man that stole water, or the soldier that killed his family? Leave a horrible human being to slowly burn alive, or put him out of his misery to spite his crimes? The choices in Spec Ops only grow darker, and the story acknowledges this. Walker and his team slowly begin to lose their minds as the pressure around them mounts. Everything they do just keeps making things worse. They soon devolve into the same violent monsters that already ruled the city. There's no attempt to justify their actions. Sure, at first you tell yourself that it's fine because they shot at you. Why should you feel bad for killing these guys? Even if they're American soldiers, they're still a bunch of crazy assholes that are butchering people, and this justification rings true. For a bit, then Walker makes a really bad call. But before we get into that, Last of Us 2 wanted you to feel like a villain because it paints Abby and her friends as good people, while you are a meanie old crazy lady upset that your daddy figure died horrifically in front of you while you cried and begged for him. But you should have known that it was okay because Abby's daddy figure died. I mean, she wasn't there when it happened, she showed up later, but it was basically the same. It really hurt her feelings. Spec Ops the Line wanted you to feel like the villain because you genuinely do evil things despite trying to be a hero. This separation really matters. Last of Us 2 relies on you just forgetting all the bad things Abby's friends did when Ellie gets to them. You're just supposed to think Ellie was going too far, despite a character literally mocking her to her face about Joel's death, joking about how he died like a bitch.
Yeah, that little bitch got what he deserved.
The protagonist of the last game, the one you super cared about and wanted to see spend the rest of his days with his daughter figure. This cunt just said he died like a bitch to Ellie's face, and you're supposed to feel bad that you caved her skull in with a pipe. Yeah, no. Fuck you, asshole. Rest in peace. Spec Ops made this work because there is no real debate on whether what Walker did was evil. At best, it was a horrible mistake he would be in prison for the rest of his life for making. At worst, he is an irredeemable sociopath that should have been executed on the spot. For context, Walker and his team come across what they believe to be an encampment of the damned 33rd soldiers. At this point in the story, they have been through absolute hell. Every side has been shooting at them. The CIA-backed refugees and the damned 33rd, which had been engaged in a deadly power struggle over dominance for Dubai. The CIA wants to kill the 33rd and cover up everything that happened. A Black Ops team was sent in to rally the refugees and inspire a revolt, striking back while the 33rd are still desperately clinging to power. Walker and his team reach what is called the Gate, i.e. the camp of soldiers they learned about from the CIA agent named Gould. Finding themselves overwhelmed and unwilling to fight them all head on, Walker decides to use white phosphorus on the camp, which kills everyone inside of it. At first, they seem to be unaffected by the decision, despite Lugo's hesitance to really go through with the plan.
Stop talking. What did she say? He means the smoke is toxic. Keep your mouth shut. Yeah, right. Gee.
They then stumble into a scorched building full of civilians, which were taken by the 33rd and held captive. Turns out, Walker and his team just massacred close to 50 innocent people, all in the wrong place at the wrong time. There is no justifying this. Walker did a really bad fucking thing. Lugo's freakout in the scene is absolutely perfect.
This is your fault, goddammit! Stop right there, Lugo. What it is, he wouldn't listen. Have a choice. He turned us into fucking killers. That's enough, Sergeant. No,
And Walker's reaction is just as good.
We need to keep moving.
What?
Reinforcements will be here any second. We need to keep moving.
But Walker, you're not even...
I'm gonna make these bastards pay for what they've done. Now, are you with me or not?
He completely denies any responsibility. It wasn't his fault, it was Conrad's. His men took the civilians to that camp, so it was Conrad that killed those people, not Walker. This is how you show human evil. You don't see a scene where Walker cries to his girlfriend over what he did. He doesn't puke after killing a pregnant woman that just tried to stab him with a knife for capping her baby daddy, or try to drown Conrad before deciding that really, they were the same, him and Walker. No, Walker completely waves off the idea that it was his choice to use the phosphorus. Instead, he furthers his obsession with finding Conrad. If Walker could just get to Conrad, it wouldn't all be for nothing. He would still be a good person. But things only get worse from there. Walker's sanity shatters, and he completely loses his mind by the end. The situation just gets more and more hellish, and the idea that finding Conrad can just fix everything that's happened is thrown out the window completely. Walker ends the game an empty shell, forced to look at what he did and admit the truth to himself. He was an absolute monster. He just wanted to feel like a hero. You can definitely argue that Spec Ops the Line is manipulative with its message, that it's trying to force you to feel bad for decisions the game made you make. The infamous loading screen quotes can be seen as an example of this. At first, the loading screen tips include general hints to stay alive or play the game, but they start to get hostile towards the player and outright break the fourth wall. Here's a list of a few of them. Do you feel like a hero yet? Squad commands are unavailable when you're alone. No one can help you now. Can you even remember why you came here? To kill for yourself is murder. To kill for your government is heroic. To kill for entertainment is harmless. My favorite one is pretty haunting. If you were a better person, you wouldn't be here. But the player denying that any of the game's events are their fault actually plays into the game's logic. Walker is a vehicle for the player. He is the protagonist we spend the game with and play as. We view everything from his perspective, and when his sense of reality snaps, we see his hallucinations and delusions. So when you claim the game never gave you a choice not to use the phosphorus, you're in the same mindset as Walker. You never had a choice. It wasn't your fault. Now, the developers actually wanted to include an option where Walker and his team simply leave. of getting the fuck out of Dubai before anything happens. Basically the best ending of the game, but it was cut since it was too easy to make the choice and not experience the rest. This might sound like a really sleazy way of forcing you to play the game the way the developers wanted you to, but the lack of a good ending actually fits. When you say you feel nothing and you're pissed off you don't have a choice, you're essentially saying that you deny responsibility for what you did. Sure, it's just a video game, but in the context of this game's world, you committed an actual atrocity. With Spec Ops the Line's logic, you killed close to 100 people, but it was okay because none of it was real. When you say it out loud like that, it starts to sound a little crazy, and Walker by the end of the game is driven insane by his denial and obsession with finishing the mission. He is a player denying he did anything wrong. Spec Ops has a very clear line of logic. Walker wants to be a hero, but every decision he makes has drastic consequences. It all comes to a head when he accidentally massacres civilians. He denies he ever had a choice, but guilt eats him alive as he pursues Conrad. Things spiral out of control, and Walker's forced to face who he really is deep down. Is he a good person stuck in a terrible set of circumstances, or is he evil? What was Ellie's arc in Last of Us 2? She starts pissed off at Joel for killing the Fireflies and lying to her about it. If they focused on the dishonesty, that would be fine, but Ellie is actually mad she didn't get to die a martyr.
I'm not trying to.
I was supposed to die in that hospital. My life would have fucking mattered.
Which is just ridiculous and is obviously there to spin what Joel did as some kind of a horrible sin. Joel dies and Ellie is traumatized by his murder, angry at herself for never forgiving Joel before he, got the golf club, and enraged at Abby for taking him away from her, so she hunts the group down one by one. She kills tons of nameless jobbers to get to each WLF member, and no, NPCs screaming out random names as they get picked off doesn't make them not nameless jobbers. Fuck off, Neil. But when she actually gets to, let's say for instance, Nora, she all of a sudden feels regretful of what she's doing. Even though she has killed dozens of people to get to her targets each, Ellie seems to have a hard time actually killing the people that wronged her. I get that the idea is that each kill is a big deal. Every single one further sends Ellie down her path to darkness. But am I really supposed to believe that someone can go from killing 20 random strangers without a second thought to actually feeling conflicted on pulling the trigger on someone that actively fucked you over? There is a clear separation between the Ellie we see in the cutscenes and the one we see in gameplay.
Okay, my friend. So off to the next life for you. I guarantee you won't be lonely.
I made her talk.
Shut the fuck up. No one cares. Know your fucking place. Trash.
It also certainly doesn't help that the new characters are kinda bad. I'm not gonna beat around the bush. Last of Us 2's interest in catering to politics hurt the story. I'm not gonna say that the game being woke instantly killed it. I'm saying it went woke because it knew it wasn't good. Games journals made a big deal of the minority representation that appears in Last of Us 2. There are lesbian characters, transgender characters, a bigot gets owned and checked on his gross privilege.
Made you some sandwiches.
Okay.
What you got there?
Bigot sandwiches.
You know, Ellie, that guy went to the trouble of making you sandwiches. You never even bothered to ask him why he still hates homosexuals in the post-apocalypse. Maybe he had a daughter. Maybe she was a lesbian too. Maybe her lover made her run away from home and into the wasteland. What if he stumbled on her body after she was tortured and raped by bandits? Maybe he found out that her girlfriend left her to die and never actually cared about her well-being at all. That bartender probably drinks and cries himself to sleep every night, thinking about his little girl, the daughter he promised his late wife he would protect with every fiber of his being, rotting like a swollen papaya in the street. This bartender is on the brink of suicide, trying not to let the guilt he feels at letting his only child die because she was whisked away by a manipulative partner consume him. He knows he was mean to you, Ellie, but when he saw you kissing Dina, he flashed back to his daughter, kissing her girlfriend, and the empty hole in his heart ached.
Bigot sandwiches.
You're a fucking dick. But The Last of Us 2 having representation doesn't make it not stupid. The whole idea of representation is stupid anyway, and yes, I'm gonna say that. So a product shows a black guy. Therefore, buying this specific video game will make black children proud of themselves. How about you just develop a decent sense of self-esteem and not rely on media to give you purpose in life, especially since corporations are actively exploiting this idea for profit and don't give a fuck if you fall into a wood chipper. And the representation in Last of Us 2 borders on getting kind of ridiculous. The first game had minorities in it. A black woman led the Fireflies, tons of strong female characters in general, 2 major characters were homosexual. Nobody cared because it wasn't the focus of their character. They were human first. Arbitrary nonsense later. The sequel focuses on Ellie, who is a lesbian, which isn't a problem. Bigot sandwich scene aside.
Bigot sandwiches.
Okay, come on, Ellie. The guy said he was sorry.
Bigot sandwiches.
Ellie, the bartender has a shotgun in his mouth.
Bigot sandwiches.
Ellie, please lay off the man. Ellie, please. His finger's on the trigger.
Bigot sandwiches.
Ellie, stop. I'm being serious right now.
Bigot sandwiches.
Smells good.
Oh god. The first game confirmed that Ellie was gay in the DLC, and it was handled well, but then the sequel confirms a transgender kid, and I kind of hate the fact they didn't just make Lev a girl. It simply raises far too many questions. Lev is one of the Seraphites, the psycho-religious cult that the WLF are fighting. He's supposed to represent a minority oppressed by totalitarian fundamentalism. Lev is the younger of 2 sisters, the older sibling being a woman named Yara. Now, Seraphite culture makes no fucking sense. It's literally just evil cult. What are their beliefs? Evil cult beliefs. Technology bad. What is their culture? Kill non-believers, punish apostates. They have like a whistle code system they use in ambushes, but it's really nothing that special. There is no line of logic behind why the Seraphites are evil beyond their evil, and Lev really doesn't sound believable at all. Yara and Lev grew up as devout Seraphites living on the island off the coast of Seattle, but when Lev turned 13, at that time growing up as a girl named Lily, he was picked to become the wife of an elder. Now, if the story tackled this from the perspective of child marriages are really fucked up and this was just too far, then it would make perfect sense. Yara and Lev facing a fate of becoming forced wives to people they do not know and are not allowed to question. It would actually make sense because they'd leave reluctantly and try to survive on their own because they don't want to live the lives the Seraphites are forcing them into. But that's not how the Seraphites work. Yara is picked to be a soldier, a warrior that fought the WLF. Lev is the one picked to be the wife of an elder. So despite this cult practicing forced marriages, they still allow women to become fighters for them. They don't, guard their women like a precious resource, and all of the men are the ones that do the fighting, like literally every ancient civilization did before the modern era. It's not like the audience would assume Naughty Dog would be okay with things like sexism and child exploitation. The Seraphites are clearly evil, and you're supposed to hate them for being bad. They are literally the one group that isn't painted with shades of gray, and this is only made worse when you find out why Lev didn't want to become a wife. Instead of simply being scared of being molested by scary adults, a very dark and logical train of thought that you can understand a kid following, Lev decides to run away because he wanted to be a soldier. He wanted to be a soldier. God fucking damn it. This is going to be a hot take, but I fucking hate this trope, the Mulan trope. The woman wants to do the fighting with the men, and if you want to take this in the direction of stay in the kitchen woman, then you're a fucking idiot. I love badass chicks. The problem is that when it's done badly, such as with Last of Us 2, it is downright infuriating, especially in a grounded story. The idea that a kid like Lev would want to go out and risk being eaten alive by mushroom zombies, being murdered by bandits, who would probably rape him since he still has female genitals. Psychotic motherfuckers don't pretend those don't exist because you said so. The entire idea he wants to be a fighter with the men is just downright absurd. Last of Us incessantly makes the point of how dangerous and violent this world is. People don't go out because they're badass zombie hunters. They go out because you don't have a fucking choice. It is merciless, and anybody can die in mere moments if something goes wrong. It isn't fun. It's why survivors stayed holed up in quarantine zones, because fuck going outside. Why would a kid ever want to go out and willingly explore this? It is such Hollywood bullshit, and there is no other reason beyond that. If anything, it would make more sense that Liv would want to be a wife. Sure, it's pretty disturbing to think about, but it's better to stay in a relatively safe community where you are considered highly valued than run out into literal hell, where you can die if you so much as sneeze at the wrong time. Hell, why not flip things? Yara and Liv are growing up in the Seraphite community with zero experience with any other cultures. It's been 20 years since the apocalypse started. They wouldn't know what modern life was like before this, and they're simply happy to live out whatever happens to them. But since the war with the WLF is costing their faction more and more people, the cult grows desperate and conscripts women into their ranks as soldiers, despite them banning that at all costs. Lev is picked as a soldier, much to Yara's dismay. He, or in this case she, since Lev would still be Lily here, is trained as a fighter. Right before Lily is sent out as a child soldier for the Seraphites, Yara hatches the plan to desert the cult and the two escape. Boom. Right there, it makes considerably more sense. Neither of them want to kill anything or anyone, but they don't have a choice. It's that or die. You can't have that though. A woman showing vulnerability or hesitation. No, both of them want to kill people, because Neil Druckmann wanted a badass transgender kid, so now you have Lev, despite not making a fucking lick of sense on how he got there. That's what makes Last of Us 2 feel stupid. It actively lowers the danger, so important characters only die when they're supposed to. The first game is a great story of survival, and keeping on to hope however you can. And the sequel is a CW drama directed by Zack Snyder. Characters don't feel like people.
How would you rate our kiss from last night?
Guess what? We're shitty people, Joel. It's been that way for a long time.
No, we are survivors.
This is our chance.
It is over, Tess!
What are you doing? I asked you to rate our kiss.
Bill?
Somebody had the same idea. They stole my shit.
Well, then what the hell is plan B?
You ought to be thankful you're still drawing breath. That was plan A, B, C, all the way to fucking Z. And furthermore, tell Tess that she could take this job.
Don't you bring Tess
She
into
could
this.
shove it right up
nothing to do with...
You're infuriating.
Have you met you?
You make me want to go back outside into that blizzard.
Move your hands, babe. I know, baby, I know. Listen to me, I know this hurts, baby. You're gonna be okay, baby. Stay with me. All right, I'm gonna pick you up. I know, baby, I know it hurts. Come on, baby, please. I know, baby, I know. Sarah.
These are actors, and you're watching a bad movie, or one of the later seasons of Walking Dead. The writers came up with this idea for a cool zombie killer, and didn't actually think about how they fit into this world. Last of Us 2 is trying to comment on violence and people, while having zero clue how either of those work. It treats savage killers as badasses unironically. You're supposed to think Abby is cool, and not a fucked up lunatic. Ellie is bad for pissing off Abby, because she is so cool. Her friends are so cool, they all fight an evil cult and mushroom zombies, all because the politics demand the minorities look good at all times. Notice that Joel and Ellie are demonized throughout the story, while Abby and Lev are praised. It's because Neil Druckmann is resentful towards these two and wants you to love these two, the more diverse duo. Naughty Dog is completely willing to shatter their own tone and prop up violent murderers as Hollywood action heroes for the sake of shitting on the first game, because it wasn't woke enough. Despite the game trying to tell a story about violent people, it does not want to actually show you what a violent person is, just what people usually think a violent person is. Spec Ops the Line, however, understands exactly how violent people act. Spec Ops the Line is a political story, yes, but the politics are weaved in a way that helps it and doesn't ruin everything when you think too much. It clearly wants to discuss violence in media and how it might be desensitizing audiences to real-life tragedies. There are also clear shots at the US military's involvement in the Middle East, putting it on blast for the invasion of Iraq and the failed war on terror. So the entire story revolves around the US military coming into the region of the Middle East and fucking it up beyond all recognition, while innocent people people are caught in the crossfire. Every major villain in the game is American. They all do atrocious things, and the game treats these actions as horrifying. No character is propped up as awesome or likable. They are simply trying to do what they can in such a fucked up situation. The closest one you can argue is Lugo, who starts off as the comedic relief guy, but once things get dark, he actually becomes the most explosive and angry character of the trio.
Got a situation, sir.
Mission critical?
No, sir.
Then take it up the chain, Sergeant.
Roger that. Lieutenant Adams.
I hear you, Sergeant. What's your status?
Status is chafed, sir.
You say chafe, Sergeant?
Yes, sir. A local airborne insurgency has infiltrated the U.S. zone designated as my pants. Sir.
Shut up, jackass.
I don't know. Sounds like a waste of 3 stone-cold, ruggedly handsome Delta operators such as ourselves.
Think of it as a paid vacation.
Well, for future reference, I prefer my beaches with a 3-to-1 sexy lady dead body ratio. Don't tell me to calm down. We got no idea what the fuck we're doing here.
Yeah, you're right. Putting your faith in Gould, you are fucking clueless. Man, I'm through with this shit.
Fuck you! At least I'm doing my job. You're the one who's fine, just sitting back, waiting for things to unfuck themselves.
You think I like watching these people die, huh? You think I won't carry this shit to my fucking grave? Stand down! Both of you! Stand the fuck down!
They all feel human and real. Walker starts off as a stoic action man, ready to do the mission and go home to fuck his big titty anime MILF wife like a good American. Yet by the end, he's revealed as a selfish prick that actually enjoys hurting people. He's not just ruthless, the man is sadistic.
What now? 30 days to want to leave Dubai? Fine! We'll bury them here!
That is what separates Last of Us 2 from Spec Ops the Line. Walker loves killing people. His in-battle dialogue shifts as the game progresses. It goes from cold and professional to angry and downright bloodthirsty.
Lugo, counter-snipe! Got it! Taking him out! Okay, the target is down. Snipe that hostile! Sure thing! Taking him down! Put down that fucking sniper!
His executions on enemies get increasingly more violent too. Walker's true nature is inching closer to the surface each time. Killing is not glorified in this game at all. When you see a corpse, you see the flies buzzing around it. It's discolored and rotting. Spec Ops the Line wants you to see how much of a big deal all of the death and suffering actually is. The ending is all about throwing everything you did back in your face, making you see what happened through the eyes of Conrad, who judges you harshly no matter what you chose to do, because none of your choices really mattered in the end. It was all fucked and could only end in more despair. Now, I could go on another tangent about how Last of Us 2 sucks, complaining about how the ending makes no sense and was done as an obvious attempt to sequel bait Last of Us 3 with Abby and Lev, but I'm not. I'm just going to talk about why Spec Ops the Line's ending is so much better.
Gentlemen, welcome to Dubai.
Walker and his team push forward to find Conrad, tensions boiling as Lugo and Adams butt heads with their increasingly unstable leader. They end up unintentionally helping the CIA destroy what little water reserves the civilians in Dubai have left, discovering that the real plan all along was to let everyone in the city die, so the crimes committed by the 33rd would remain hidden forever. The plan goes to all hell, and the entire Black Ops team gets killed in the process. Walker and his team are left with the 33rd, who put up fierce resistance as the situation grows more dire. Along the way, Lugo is killed by enraged civilians, so Walker and Adams guns down the crowd in retaliation. Now technically, you have the choice to fire into the air to scare them away, but the game basically acts like you killed them anyway, since you still kinda did by destroying their water. You just gave them a few more days alive. Plus, it kinda just fits Walker's arc that he just snaps and goes full heal, this time intentionally killing civilians instead of it being a mistake. Realizing that neither of them were going to leave Dubai alive, Walker and Adams assault the main compound for the damned 33rd, where they believe Conrad to be hiding. The two men make a last stand, but Walker is still obsessed with reaching Conrad. Adams berates him for sticking to the mission despite everything that's happened, and shames him while dying in a firefight with what's left of the enemy.
We have you surrounded. Lay down your weapons. Fuck you! Just shoot me! I'm standing right here! Come on! Secure the building! Shoot me, goddammit! Fucking shoot me!
This is your last chance, Walker. Surrender, or my men will cut you down.
Don't you dare! Well, fuck you then! I didn't come this far to surrender!
It's the only way inside that tower.
The fuck's sake! Give it up! The mission's over! We failed!
Not while I'm still breathing!
Fine! Then keep breathing! Run, motherfucker!
Walker finally reaches the tower and confronts Conrad, only to discover that the voice taunting him on his radio the entire time was all in his head. Conrad committed suicide not long after Dubai collapsed, and he's been dead long before the game ever started. Still denying the truth, Walker hallucinates Conrad holding him at gunpoint, and the player is given two choices. Take responsibility for what you've done and commit suicide, either by directly killing yourself or allowing Conrad to shoot you. You die on top of the tower and the entire city is implied to go extinct, or shoot Conrad, still denying your responsibility for your actions. This ending goes on to include 3 more choices, so I kinda consider this the canon path. The US military rolls into Dubai. Walker manages to find a radio and contact them after his episode with Conrad. Point is, the reinforcements are finally here. He is found wearing Conrad's jacket holding an automatic shotgun. The soldiers are nervous, scared shitless he's about to go crazy on them, and demands he drop the weapon. Once again, you're allowed to choose what happens. Shoot at the soldiers and die, essentially committing suicide. Shoot at the soldiers and live, which you can infer leads to Walker taking control over what is left of Dubai and following the same road as Conrad. Now, the last choice is to just drop the weapon. The soldiers guide you to the Humvee, and they talk about the aftermath of everything that happened in the game, saying they couldn't believe Walker survived all of it.
You don't mind me asking, what was it like? How'd you survive all this?
Who said I did?
Now, this ending is implied to be a hallucination if you paid attention to some of the more subtle details, but I actually like to think it was real. Honestly, this is my favorite ending. Not because Walker lives, but because this is not a happy ending. In fact, this is probably the bleakest of the entire game. Walker, by the end, is just completely broken. All of his friends are dead. His mind is just fucking powder. He was forced to accept the fact that he made a decision that killed 47 civilians. He cannot just go back to America and worry about the next barbecue with his neighbors. At best, Walker is going to struggle with post-traumatic stress disorder the rest of his life, if he doesn't blow his brains out like the bartender from Last of Us 2. In a way, Walker suffers a fate worse than death. He has to live with what he's done, either torturing himself over his guilt or still running away from the truth. There is no way this ends with all of the nerds getting laid at prom, but that's what makes this game so special. Pretty much every ending has some line of logic to it, and you're allowed to interpret them as you wish. Walker kills himself because he can't handle living with what he's done, feeling like suicide is his one shot at redemption. Walker shoots at the soldiers because he is completely consumed by the manifestation of Conrad in his mind. Walker, as we know him, is dead, and he essentially splits his psyche apart to shield himself, like the ending of Perfect Blue. Walker leaves with the soldiers as he now accepts his fate as a monster and rides out of Dubai with an uncertain future, traumatized by everything and permanently scarred for the rest of his days. Last of Us 2 couldn't make a single good ending with $100 million. Spec Ops the Line made 3 amazing ones with $23 million. Now, this video is, pretty long, so let's go ahead and wrap things up here. Spec Ops the Line is an amazing game, and it continues to be 8 years later. Last of Us 2, meanwhile, is already aging like milk, destined to be a bad joke nobody wants to remember. The one thing I will give Last of Us 2 is that at least it is bad. If it was just okay, or even boring, then there would be 0 redeeming qualities. But the bizarre narrative decisions and downright patronizing condescension the game has keeps us fascinated. Even if playing the game is a fucking joyless whole, you are given material to make fun of, which is nice. Memes mocking the game are going to last longer than Last of Us 2. Neil Druckmann showed his ass to the general public while he was expecting everyone to kiss his chocolate star, but instead, we're all laughing at him. Neil swears that he loves the split opinions, that he would rather people hate it than be bored, but his reactions after the game came out reveal his true feelings. This dude just wanted his dick sucked, plain and simple. Nobody is interested, Neil. We're all gonna go play Spec Ops instead, and mock you as you urgently try to get HBO to make The Last of Us into a show, running back to ride the hype of the first game after the second blew up in your face. But Spec Ops will remain a cult classic that is unironic cinematically good. It took the time to challenge the player and explore subject matter that is still pretty taboo. Spec Ops never tried to make anybody happy, and it wasn't afraid to hold a middle finger to a very popular genre of games that dominated the industry at the time. That's all I can say about Spec Ops the Line and Last of Us 2. One is made by actual artists that knew how people worked and took inspiration from classic literature in order to create a story that is still well loved by audiences to this day. The other is an ego trip that included social politics for good press coverage and is made by a sleazebag so high off his own farts that his eyebrows burned off. Take your pick which is which. Me, I'm gonna go ahead and get some sleep. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. See you guys.